Grandpa had flown 6 hours just to be at my brother's wedding. He was 82, and traveling wasn't easy for him anymore, especially since his knees had gotten worse and he needed help walking long distances. Still, he insisted he wouldn't miss his eldest grandson's big day. He dressed in his best suit, polished his shoes himself, and kept his old watch on, the one he only wore on important occasions. He told me before boarding the flight, "Family shows up. That's all that matters." I didn't know that his definition of family and my mother's version were completely different. When Grandpa arrived at the venue, exhausted but smiling, Mom barely acknowledged him. She didn't hug him, didn't ask about his trip, didn't help him to his seat. Instead, she looked at the coordinator and pointed to a lonely table squeezed beside the trash bins and a stack of used dishes. "Seat him there," she said, as if she were assigning a stray guest who RSVP'd late. Grandpa blinked in confusion, looking around at the decorated hall filled with flowers, lights, and elegantly set tables. Every close family member had a place near the stage, except him. I walked over quickly, helping him sit. He tried to hide the hurt behind a forced smile. "It's okay," he whispered. "I can see everything from here." But he couldn't. The view was blocked by a pillar, and the odor of discarded food was too strong. I felt anger rising inside me, but I kept quiet for the moment. Wedding days were chaotic enough already. Mom approached me soon after with irritation dripping from her voice. "Why are you hovering around him?" she snapped. "Your brother's side is full. Let him stay here. He'll be fine." I couldn't understand how she could treat her own father like that. Grandpa was the one who paid half of my brother's university fees, the one who helped us when Dad lost his job, the one who took care of us every summer. Yet now she acted like he was just some burden she had to hide. As guests started arriving, people gave confused looks toward Grandpa's lonely corner. A few even tried to greet him, but Mom kept pulling them away, saying, "He likes to be alone." I knew she was lying. Grandpa loved family gatherings. He came alive around people, telling stories, laughing, cherishing every moment. But today, she didn't want him anywhere near the spotlight. The reason: my brothers-in-laws were wealthy and classy, and Mom didn't want anyone to see her father's worn-out shoes, slow walk, or aging hands. She wanted the wedding to look perfect, and Grandpa didn't fit her version of perfection. When I couldn't take it anymore, I went to Mom and said quietly, "He doesn't deserve this. Just one chair at our table. Just one. I'll stand if needed." She turned to me with fire in her eyes. "Don't question my decisions today. I've handled everything perfectly. Don't ruin it." And when I tried again, gently grabbing her arm, she snapped. Her hand came across my face so fast that guests nearby gasped. The sound echoed. My cheek burned instantly. Grandpa saw it from across the room and tried to stand up, but his legs shook too much. People whispered. My cousins stared. My brother, caught up in wedding pictures, didn't even notice. Mom hissed under her breath, "Stop making scenes. You always do this." I stepped back, speechless, humiliated, and furious. Grandpa's eyes filled with tears, not for himself, but for me. I could see it, the helplessness of an old man who no longer had the strength to protect his granddaughter. I made my decision right there. If Mom wanted to hide Grandpa, I would do the opposite. I walked straight to him, took his arm, and whispered, "Come with me. You're not sitting here." He looked unsure but trusted me enough to try. Slowly, painfully, we walked through the hall. People stepped aside. Family members stared. Mom's face twisted in rage, but I didn't stop. I took Grandpa right to the front, to the table reserved for VIP guests, my brother's new-in-laws and a few business associates. The head of the bride's family stood up politely and said, "Sir, please take my seat." He immediately understood the disrespect done to Grandpa. Mom looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. Grandpa lowered himself into the seat carefully, apologizing for causing trouble, even though he caused none. The bride's father shook his head and said, "A grandfather belongs with his family, not near trash." Mom stormed toward us, but before she could say anything, a sudden noise outside interrupted everyone. A staff member rushed in and said something to the event manager, who immediately hurried toward the entrance. People began whispering. Some stood up and craned their necks toward the doors. Then the coordinator announced loudly, "A private jet has landed at the nearby airstrip. They say it's for Mr. Harris," and everyone turned toward Grandpa. My mother froze. Her mouth fell open. Guests stared. Grandpa blinked in shock, unaware of what was happening. But I knew. Grandpa wasn't just old. He was wealthy, far wealthier than Mom ever told anyone. He never bragged, never flaunted, never demanded respect. He lived simply despite owning a business he had quietly passed to trustees. Mom had humiliated a man whose jet had just landed to pick him up. The room shifted. Faces changed. Conversations stopped. And for the first time that evening, Grandpa looked at my mother, not with anger, but with a calm that was far more powerful. When Grandpa's name echoed through the hall after the announcement about the private jet, my mother's face drained of color so quickly she looked like she might faint. The same woman who slapped me just an hour earlier now stood frozen, staring at Grandpa as if she'd never seen him before. The guests slowly turned their eyes toward him, whispering, wondering how the quiet old man who'd arrived alone, tired, and seated near trash had a jet waiting for him at the airstrip. Grandpa himself looked confused and a little embarrassed, as though he hadn't expected any of this attention. He leaned toward me and whispered, "I didn't ask for anything fancy. They insisted on sending it." His voice wavered with a mixture of humility and discomfort. I squeezed his hand and told him softly, "It's okay. You deserve to be respected." Mom stood a few steps away, breathing hard, trying to form words but failing. She looked around the hall, her carefully curated image collapsing as quickly as the guests' judgment shifted. The bride's father walked toward Grandpa with genuine admiration. "Sir, may we help escort you when you're ready? We didn't know we had such an honored guest." Grandpa shook his head shyly. "I'm no one important," he murmured, but his attempt at modesty only made people admire him more. Mom, realizing she was losing control of the narrative, rushed to his side, pretending concern. "Dad, why didn't you tell us about the jet? You should have said something," she said loudly, hoping everyone would hear her fake support. Grandpa looked at her for a long moment, his eyes soft but filled with disappointment that cut deeper than anger ever could. "You didn't ask," he replied simply. The sentence hit like a stone thrown into still water. A visible shiver ran down her face as she tried to mask her shock with a forced laugh. My brother finally approached, clueless and distracted. "What's happening? Why is everyone looking here?" he asked. Mom immediately grabbed his arm. "Nothing. They made a mistake. Come, focus on your pictures." She tugged him away before he heard too much, but not before he gave Grandpa a puzzled glance. Grandpa attempted to stand, but his legs trembled, so I helped him up slowly. People began offering their arms, guiding him respectfully through the crowd toward the entrance. Mom kept circling us like a shadow, trying to appear involved. But the more she hovered, the more obvious her guilt became. Grandpa noticed too. Before stepping outside, he turned to her again, his voice low enough for only the closest to hear but clear enough to cut through the chaos. "I flew 6 hours just to see my grandson get married," he said calmly. "Not to be hidden beside trash. I know I'm old, but I'm not garbage." Mom's eyes filled with tears, not from remorse, but from the fear of being exposed. She stuttered, "Dad, I didn't mean," but Grandpa gently raised a hand. "It's done. Let's not pretend." Outside, a sleek black car waited to take Grandpa to the airstrip. The driver stepped forward respectfully, bowing his head. "Sir, your flight crew is ready whenever you are." My mother's mouth opened again in disbelief. Until that moment, she didn't truly understand how far Grandpa's influence reached. She always thought he was just a retired man with a small pension. She never knew he had invested quietly for decades, or that he still had friends in powerful places who respected him enough to send a jet for his comfort. Grandpa looked at me. "Will you come with me for a moment?" he asked. I nodded instantly. Mom stepped forward too. "I'll come as well," but he shook his head. "No, I need to speak with her alone." Her face twisted, hurt and angry. "Why her? I'm your daughter." Grandpa's reply was gentle but devastating. And yet she's the one who treated me like family today. Mom looked like she'd been slapped this time. She tried to protest, but Grandpa had already turned away, holding onto my arm. The short drive to the airstrip was strangely quiet. Grandpa watched the road with tired eyes, his breathing slow, his hands folded neatly over his cane. When the car stopped near the jet, the engines hummed in the background, glowing under the evening sky. A ramp lowered, and a uniformed attendant greeted him warmly. "Welcome back, sir. We're ready whenever." Grandpa didn't move yet. He turned toward me with a small, sad smile. "Do you know why I didn't tell your mother about any of this?" I shook my head. "Because she stopped seeing me as her father a long time ago. She sees me as a responsibility. A burden. Someone to manage, not someone to love." I swallowed hard. "I'm sorry she treated you that way." He touched my hand. "You didn't. You've always been different. That's why I asked you to come." He reached into his pocket with trembling fingers and pulled out a small envelope. "I was going to give this to your brother today, but he didn't even look for me. He placed it in my hand. So I'm giving it to you instead." I stared at the envelope, confused. "What is it?" "A choice," he said softly. "And a future. One you earned today, not because you stood up for me, but because you saw me." The engines warmed louder. Grandpa squeezed my hand once more before stepping toward the ramp. At the top, he turned, his silhouette lit against the jet's bright interior. "Tell your mother," he said, "that respect can't be faked, and love can't be forced."